Okay, well, so there's us, Darlene, and I'm gonna bring in now Darlene. She is our, I wrote it down, I can do this, business executive leadership coach, as well as a communication expert. And I met her through my women's network that I'm a part of here in San Diego. And I was looking for someone like we had last month, to help us communicate better to our clients, to help us understand um, how they're communicating to us, just effective communication. And when I talked to Darlene and I talked to Jen, we had last month, they were so different in their approach. And I was like, you know what? I have to have you both because I think we're going to learn from you. So I call this part two of our communication series. So, Darlene, I want this to be, I said earlier to you and to all of you, interactive conversation. She's going to have a presentation and go through her stuff and what she does and coach us on how to communicate better, but then come out with questions and comments, and we'll just see where it goes. These are very interactive sessions. So having said that, Darlene,
Awesome.
you can further tell us who you are and what you're about to do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nancy. I'm excited to be here with all of you. Like Nancy shared, we connected last month and we had a great conversation. And I was so honored to be able to come in and chat with all of you about how you're communicating. And we chose the topic today to specifically talk about like how do we communicate to build client trust and win more gigs. Most of the conversation will be just on communication, but I want you to think of it through the lens of how am I communicating with the people that I'm an everyday conversation with. So we communicate nonstop, whether it's with our body language, we can cross our arms and um, do all the things, and like our posture is part of it. But a lot of it is the words we're using. And so when we're communicating with our partners, our coworkers, our clients, if you have kids, if you have grandkids, right, we're communicating on all levels at all points. And so how are we communicating? Are we saying things that are clear and succinct and concise? Are we actually communicating what we want to be saying? Or are we, as I like to call it, verbally vomiting all over the place? Because we've all had those conversations with people at networking events and someone's telling us who they are and what they do. And they say so much that we're like, where's the restroom? How do I get out of here? We're looking for the exits. How do we make sure we're not that person? How do we communicate when we're at events and we're building those relationships so that people are leaning in? They get curious. They're like, I actually want to learn more about what you do and how you can support and why I need you on my team. So those are some of the angles that we're going to talk about. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and my computer's all over the place, so I probably look like I'm looking up at the stars right now, but let me get this up. Yeah, technology. It's not my favorite today. All right, so we're going to talk about like how do we master the 5 core strategies to communicate with impact in your client collaborations. So I'm going to take you through the 5 ways that we communicate that really allow us to show up as ourselves. Let it be in flow, easy, simplified, so we don't feel like we're constantly just saying too much and not really getting our message across the way that we want to. I'm also going to share some tips on how do we build some self-trust and overcome the comparison trap so that we can show up confidently when we're working with our clients and our colleagues. And then what messaging techniques do we need to use to inspire and align with your clients and team? So as we go through the 5 core competencies, it'll really build on those other 2. But take a second and just think for a moment. When you think about your communication, do you feel like you're communicating the way that you want to be and showing up the way that you need to be to win more clients? And you can pop off chat or pop off mute if you want to and just let us know what you're thinking. Or you can share in the chat as well. But what comes up for you when you think about how are you communicating? And is it clear? Do you feel like you're getting your message out the way that you want it to, or does it feel fuzzy?
Well, I'm not scared.
Perfect.
You know what? When you said that, I think my message is clear as to what tempo does when I meet people, but I also think that I still have such excitement and passion for our business that sometimes I might come off unprofessional because I'll be like, I remember meeting somebody and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you. And she's like, nice to meet you too. And I was like, ooh, Nancy, like not everybody wants to be greeted with the bounce in my step. I don't know. So I just got, got really like self-conscious. This happened within the
Mhm.
past year. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
I could see how that can happen, especially when, and I love that you're showing up that way because that's you. And that's definitely how I want you to show up. But how do we have to also notice what the other person's response is. Are we coming off, is it too much for them? Are we too low energy sometimes where we're like they're like, how do we match them where they are so they feel like we're having like a really good conversation? I call it mirroring, like when we're showing up as the other person. So if you're on a sales conversation, if the person's lean in with them, like lean in and talk to them. So they like if you're on Zoom, obviously, if you're in person, you can do it too. But especially when you're in a virtual world, like how do you connect with them by modeling what they're doing in those moments? Anybody else have any thoughts when it comes to their communication that they want to share with us?
Yeah. So Nancy, I thought it was interesting that you're self-conscious about the way you come across. I used to feel that way, but as I've met with more people, and especially because I work around a lot of crew members, I I stopped feeling that way because I it felt like I wasn't, if I was trying to change the way I was coming across to people, then I wasn't being myself. And I felt like being myself was probably the first and foremost most important thing I could do when I'm walking into a room of new people. And
Mhm.
as we get to know each other through the process, which usually in our process is very quick, a few days, if not a few weeks, then we'll kind of open up to each other and find that middle ground of I can meet you with this energy level at some point, but just if people can just be comfortable with being themselves, I feel more comfortable. Even, it doesn't matter if they're low energy or high energy. I don't feel like I need to mirror someone to make the point or to connect with them, is what I'm saying. Sorry, I'm a little off today.
No,
Um,
that's
but
great.
but I used to feel very self-conscious about that. And being a female in this industry, when I was starting out, I worked around a lot of high-level males who did tell me to smile more.
Hmm.
And then when I did, for whatever reason, that scared them, and they said maybe a little less. less. So
Yeah.
it's always about finding that middle ground. But I've once I stopped kind of taking that advice and just walked into a room as myself, I found that people are
Mhm.
they are comfortable with me if they know that I'm comfortable off the
Yes.
bat.
I love that you brought that up because that's one of the five core strategies we're going to go into in a few minutes actually is talking about your presence and unapologetically showing up as who you are. That's the easiest way for us to like just feel connected to the conversation is not wearing a mask. And I'm not talking like a COVID mask, right? I'm thinking Mardi Gras mask where we've kind of got the mask on and we're only letting like we're taking it down, letting people see a little bit of us, and then we kind of pull it back up sometimes because we're not sure how we're showing up in those moments. But how do we just be completely there and present in the moment? So I love that you shared that. All right, let's do one more share. Anybody else want to share something that comes up for them when they think about their communication?
So I was just typing in the chat, but I've been told, granted I was in a different role. I've transitioned to stage management from being in audio production, but I've been told on several occasions that I come across as intimidating, and that's been like by other male crew members. And I don't really know like where that comes from, um, or how to not come across that way without going to like a really like further place where I'm coming off as maybe less focused or less knowledgeable about something. So I think
Yeah.
there's always this balance. I'm worried that I'm either coming across as not serious enough or maybe too serious.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting though? So often I feel like women, we have to, like, we get told we're too intimidating or we have RBF or all these different things, but it's usually not that. We're usually showing up as ourselves, and it's because it's I would compare it to like the masculine and the feminine energy. And we're so used to the masculine that when we see it from a gentleman, it looks different on them than it does on a woman. And so it can be like people think that we're being intimidating or we're coming off as too much, but oftentimes it's just we're trying to match what we're seeing as like the energy in the room. And we're actually showing up as ourselves in those moments. So I would like, Carmen, I'm thinking like, you're probably showing up exactly as you need to. They're intimidated, and that's something that internalizes for them. It's not necessarily a reflection of you. It's more of a reflection of them and how they're perceiving a woman in the space that maybe there is maybe typically more male dominant in those moments. Thank you for sharing that. I can see how that comes up often with a lot of the women that I talk to, is like we're showing up the way that we feel like we're most empowered, and it can come off as intimidating for other people in those moments. And then we feel like we have to change ourselves, when in reality, I say we lean into it a little bit more, like play into it more, like show up more as yourself in those moments. All right. We're gonna, oops, my slides don't like me. Let me share just a little bit about myself so you know who you're speaking to today. So I've had my own business now for almost 19 years. This summer will be 19 years that I've had my own business. But prior to starting my own business, I spent over 10 years as an operations training and development leader inside of big box retail stores. You might know them as Best Buy or Gap. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of kind of what even Carmen was just talking about. I was often the only female in the room, and I really had to identify and find my voice in those situations. During that time, I felt this pull to find more balance in my life and be able to give more time to my family. I was a single mom at the time, and I felt like when I was at home with my son, I was worried about work. And when I was at work, I was worried about my son. And I just felt this pull for something different, maybe a lot like many of you. It sounds like all of you have your own businesses, and you've stretched and put yourself out in a new position. That's kind of what I did at the time, is I was looking for something more. And I also noticed during those times when I was in retail management, and then especially as I started my own business, I started leading a lot of conversations about speaking up and using your voice. I found that my voice, especially when I think back to my childhood, I was not encouraged to speak up. I felt like I was supposed to sit there and look pretty, not use my words, not raise my hand, not share my thoughts and my opinions. And then so as I was starting my own career and starting my own business, I really found it really hard to speak up in the situations that I needed to let people know that I was there. And so that kind of started. A lot of times we teach what we often have to learn. Maybe some of you can relate to that. The things that you love to talk about are probably things that maybe you struggled with in the past, and you've done the work on yourself, and you've been able to get yourself to a place where now other people are coming to you for advice and asking for your thoughts and your opinions and different pieces like that. And so when I started my business as a coach, especially, my message was all over the place. I didn't feel like I was communicating who I was, how I could support the people, and really identifying getting the message across of who I am and how I can support to actually connect with the ideal clients that I was looking for. So when you think about the people that you're engaging with and you're having conversations with, are you saying the things that they need to hear to make them say, yes, I want to hire you. I want to have you come in and help support me at my events. I want to have you come in and be the support person that I need in an area where they're maybe struggling. And so what I do now is I show business leaders and entrepreneurs how to strengthen not only their inner voice, so the way that we talk to ourselves, but also how they use the words when they're expressing to connect with clients, whether it's in sales calls and presentations. If they are having everyday dinner conversations, making sure we're communicating in the way that we need to really make people pay attention and lean in. And I really want to support leaders in speaking up for themselves and for the ideas and issues that matter the most to them and to their company, so they can really move people to take action whenever they do get up to speak, whether it's at an event, on a stage, if it's in a blog post they're writing, or if it's even on social media. And I do that lots of different ways, as you can see at the bottom, whether it's coaching and training. I do messaging strategy sessions with clients, keynotes, host retreats. I teach my clients how to do presentation skills, and then executive communication inside of organizations for leaders. And then everything I do is wrapped around diversity, equity, inclusion, making sure that every voice is heard. And so one of the secret sauces I found when it comes to sharing our message is to use what I call the Step in Your Moxie vocal empowerment system. And so there's 5 areas that are really important for us to focus on when we think about showing up and communicating our message. And that starts at the bottom, which is our inner voice. So the inner voice that's in our head often impacts the voice that we use when we're speaking out loud. When we think about, excuse me, when we think about our inner critic, maybe you've heard the word imposter syndrome. That's a pretty big buzzword these days. People talk about like, oh, I have imposter syndrome, or maybe you have imposter syndrome. What is the message that we're giving to ourselves? How are we speaking to ourselves internally? So take a second and think about if you were to look in the mirror right now, what would you say to yourself? Sometimes we might say, oh, my nose looks big, or oh, I wish I had curly, fluffy hair because I've got this straight hair. Or we start to put ourselves down in ways that don't feel really empowering. And so what I've learned over time is how we speak to ourselves actually impacts how we're showing up in the world and how we're communicating our message. So are we telling ourselves that I'm worthy? I deserve to be in this room. I deserve to be the one that gets this amazing new event because I'm the perfect person for it because blank. It makes me think oftentimes too of maybe I might date myself a little bit here, but remember like the old cartoon characters where there'd be like an angel on one shoulder and then there would be like the little devil on the other shoulder. And the angels telling us like we're good enough, we deserve to be here, we've got this. But then there's that little part of us that's like, but are we good enough? Do we need to go back to school? Do we need to learn one more task? Do we need to learn one more trade? Do we need a little bit more education? Do we need to get a certificate? Do we need to go back to school? Like we have that inner battle with ourselves. And so think of your inner critic voice. And I'd love for you to share in the chat, or if you can come off of mute. But what's something negative you've heard yourself say recently about yourself? And I want to let's play with that, and then we'll turn it into a positive from there. What does anybody have an example of something they've said to themselves recently that they just want to flip it on its head and switch it up a little bit?
I have one.
Yeah, please.
Why aren't new opportunities coming my way?
Why aren't new opportunities coming my way? Yeah.
I
So
second
how
that
can you,
one.
Barry, switch that into a positive for yourself to go out there and get those new opportunities?
I was hoping you had that answer.
I can give you one.
Okay,
One that I would flip it maybe to is new opportunities flow freely to me.
okay, got it.
How does that feel?
Yeah,
So, because we're all going to catch ourselves saying, like nothing's coming at me, like flipping it in those moments into a positive, and then saying to yourself, maybe I like to do mirror work. I have my clients stand in front of a mirror, and if they have a lot of negative thoughts and certain things, like we actually have them practice staring themselves in the eye and say new opportunities flow freely to me. Like I might say that one or two or three times each morning until I say it so dang confidently that I absolutely believe it, and it's attracting back to me that way.
right. Almost like a gratitude journal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that, and you can do it in a journal as well if you're a journaler. I like to do the eye-to-eye contact because there's something really powerful that happens when we look ourselves in the eye and we say these things. Like it shifts that, like it makes it quick. I can't even talk. We are able to more quickly pull it in and really stand confidently and believe it in that moment. I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. Let me see what. So Carmen says, I deserve new opportunities. I love that. Carmen, what was your negative thought? Or do you feel like that, or do
What
you feel
was
like that is your negative thought? Let me ask
no,
that.
I was just responding to Barry, like,
Okay.
and how he could
Oh
switch.
yeah.
Yeah, I do. I just had a negative thought. I don't know how to put it into a complete sentence, but I was recently just offered an opportunity, and I would be working with people that I have been in the industry for a very long time, and I get very worried that that I will come in and they will think that I don't know as much as I should know, I guess, to be in that position.
Mhm. How can you reframe that for yourself?
I think just reminding myself that I wouldn't have been asked if I hadn't been working very hard.
Yeah. So you could even say like people hire me because I work hard. And then I would add to it, I lost some of the other things that you shared in the sentence, but I would add that to it and really use that to like ground yourself in the moment. And it kind of connects with what Kimberly put. Hers was people don't trust my experience because they think I look too young for it to be true, actually true. So Kimberly, what's something that you feel like you could switch on yours to make it feel more powerful and even like hold on to that youth piece to it, the young piece to it?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how I would switch that thought into words, but I did take an action towards it. When I generated my, just essentially it's a landing page, but a website, I used the resource I have, which is my husband, who's a video producer and editor, and I had all this footage of me producing and at events. So I said, let's cut a sizzle reel for me. So it proved that my experience is real. People who have never seen me in a ballroom before now can see me running a room. And it's almost like my visual receipt of
Yeah,
my experience. I felt like my resume was not enough for me. I needed to stand out. So that was my that was my actionable response to it. But that
yeah,
it's still a thought that I have. Um, and that's why I'm always trying to push that video or, those materials to prove my
mhm,
work. And I recently just kind of created a portfolio, and someone did give me positive feedback about it, saying, I've never seen a producer do this before. This is really helpful. So
I love
I
that.
kind
I
of
love
took
that you
that thought
called it
and
a
turned it into action instead of trying to
yeah,
rewire the wording in my head, because I didn't know how else to do it without thinking that I needed to prove it in some way at the end of the day.
yeah. I love that you called it a visual receipt.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to show ourselves the evidence. Yeah, other people want to see the evidence sometimes too, but sometimes we need to show it to ourselves. So you took action on it. And then you could also, I think like with your sentence here, like you could even say people trust me and my experience because I'm young. I bring blank to the table.
Mhm.
And then like fill in for you, like what is it about you specifically that you bring to the table that they're going to be able to capture, like that they're going to grab onto and be like really tangible for them.
Yeah.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so let's go up from our inner voice. So let's continue to like reframe when you notice the negative thinking. Notice how you're speaking to yourself and reframe it to a positive. And then if we go up the pyramid from there, we have the physiological sensations. And I don't know about you, but when I get what a lot of people call nervous or like the nervous sensations, I call it sensations now, but I used to call it like nerves. I'd get like giant butterflies in my stomach. My heart would start racing. My face would turn bright red. My voice might quaver. My hands might shake uncontrollably, right? Especially when we're communicating something that we're passionate about. Our body can kind of take over in those moments and it can feel like a lot. And a lot of times those sensations feel like nervousness, but it's really excitement. So one thing I'd love for you to reframe is when you feel like you're getting nervous sensations, like rename them to excited sensations and within your body. And there's lots of different things that we can do to take back control of our body. The best thing for us to do is make sure you're standing grounded. We're all sitting right now, or I'm sitting, but like put your feet like hip distance apart, feet grounded on the floor. Notice your posture, pull your shoulders back. Put your palms open and just kind of breathe. Like, let's all just take a second and just breathe in and then exhale. Breathe in, exhale. Let's do that a few times on our own. I want you to notice for yourself what shifted in your body just intentionally breathing. It looks like everybody here that I can see that's on camera is breathing naturally on their own. And we breathe without even thinking about it on a moment by moment basis, right? Like we're constantly breathing without thinking about it. It's actually the one way we can take back control of our body. So what shifted for you as you took some breaths? Did you notice something different in your body? Did you feel differently?
My shoulders relaxed.
Oh yeah, shoulders
My
relaxed.
shoulders dropped.
I love that. Anybody else feel anything? Oftentimes I hear that we feel more relaxed, we feel more present. And breath work can be done at any point. So if you're about to go have a hard conversation before you leave the room to walk into the other room to go have it, maybe you're at a big event and you need to go have a big conversation with somebody who's come in and kind of ruffled a bunch of feathers and you need to like calm them back down. Take a few moments to breathe yourself before you go into those situations. And then even offering that as a tool to somebody else. You know what? I feel like we have a lot of heightened emotion right now. Let's do it. Let's take a couple of breaths. And let's take back control of our bodies for this moment so we can move forward. But those sensations can come up and they feel like a lot. If we can breathe through them, other things you can do. I love essential oils are really calming. If you're somebody who likes essential oils or even candles, you can light a candle, use some essential oil, but just calm yourself and reground yourself and take back control of those sensations. Other things you can do, one of my favorites is to have a massive dance party. Obviously, depending on the place, it can look a little different. I've been about to go out on stage and speak before, and I noticed my sensations were taking over, and I was like starting to like feel like I was having an out of body experience. So I went into a bathroom stall and I just kind of, I didn't really have a dance party, but I like just moved my body. I just like moved my hands really quick. I was shaking my legs out, moving my body, just letting myself relax. If you're home before you go have a conversation, like ask Alexa to turn on your favorite song and dance it out. Oftentimes, if I'm driving a lot of times when I'm going to go speak. And so I will turn on my favorite music and I will sing loud and I'll just kind of let myself zone out. And that allows my body to take back control so that when I when I go to have the conversation or I get up on the stage in that moment, I feel more myself and more in control of how I'm feeling in those moments. So notice when those sensations start to come up, have a dance party, move your body. You can even take like your right hand and touch your left knee, your left hand touch your right knee, and do that a couple of times under the desk, even on a Zoom call, and no one will know what you're doing. And that'll just like take back control of your body and let you just like recenter yourself. Anybody have any questions about how to take back control of your body in those moments? I think that's the biggest one that gets in the way of people is like we get those giant butterflies and our hearts are beating and like we feel like I can't go have this conversation right now because I feel like I can't even think. So just take that moment for yourself and recenter and reground before you go and have that conversation. All right, and then the next one is messaging. And this is the words we actually choose to say when we're communicating. Are we showing up being very clear? Are we concise? Saying it short and sweet? Are we being succinct in our messaging? Oftentimes, when we think about our message, we feel like we have to say a whole lot to get a message across. I've actually learned that I make a bigger impact when I say less than when I say more. So think about how you're communicating your message, and this could be your message if you're at a networking event and you're introducing yourself to somebody. Are you saying short and sweet, like maybe a 1-sentence introduction versus like a 2-minute monologue of your whole entire life story and how you came in to do this work and like where you go on for too long? Notice what that looks like. Maybe it's a message with even a partner. Maybe you just had a big fight or a coworker that you had, you didn't see eye to eye with them. How can you come back in that conversation and listen, but also be really clear on what you want to say? And one of the things that I love to do, you'll notice on the outside of the pyramid, it says role play. When we're messaging, one of the most beautiful gifts we can give ourselves is the opportunity to hear ourselves before we say it to the person that we're speaking to, but practice it a few times. I love to do what I call walk and talk. And so if I need to have a hard conversation, I will usually schedule it. If me and Barb had to have a conversation, Barb, I'm picking on you. I would probably say, hey, Barb, do you mind getting together tomorrow morning for coffee at say 10:30? I want to talk about something that came up yesterday when we were working together, or like whatever the situation is. Like I might say a few things about what we're meeting so that Barb is now ready and prepared for the conversation. She knows what we're going to talk about, but it also gives me a chance to plan it, but then I can go home and say, okay, what do I want to say to Barb when I have this conversation with her? And I might, practice walking around my living room or my office. And Barb, when you said blank yesterday, it made me feel like blank. I'd love to discuss like what your thoughts were on the situation and what was coming up for you in that moment. And then allowing myself to sit back and listen, fully listen, not think of a rebuttal of what I want to say back to Barb while she's telling me how she was feeling, but really taking in what she said and then giving myself, 30 seconds to process and then responding to what Barb said to me. So that's one of the tools that we can use, especially when we think about our messaging. Oftentimes we say so much because we don't feel like we either feel like we're not getting heard or we feel like our message isn't landing the way that we want it to. So really practicing saying it out loud, practice what we want to say to the point where when we say it, we trust what we're saying and we don't feel like we're so worried and like we're not in our head. We're actually able to relax into our body and be present and get our message across. And then when we go up from there, we go to presence. And I talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but presence is really unapologetically showing up as ourselves and letting people see us for who we truly are. I like to think of it like if you were to have a power stance, what would that look like for you? Would you look like Wonder Woman? Would you have your chest open and your arms on your hips and unapologetically showing up as yourself? How do you breathe life into who you are so that people see you truly? We go about life so quickly almost every single day, right? We go from one task to the next, from one meeting to the next meeting, to the next meeting, to the next meeting, to pick up the kids, to snuggling the grandkids, to making dinner, going for a walk, getting into bed, that we don't really ever allow ourselves to be seen or actually see other people. So when we think about presence, how do we actually let people see us for who we truly are? And are we on the flip side of that, actually seeing other people for who they truly are and taking a moment to really see what's coming up for them and hear what they're having to say? And then at the top of the pyramid, we have moving people to take action. So once we've controlled the inner chatter in our head, we've taken ownership and control of our body again, and we feel connected. We're connecting our message. We're saying things the way that we really mean to, and it's coming out the way that we want it to. We're showing up unapologetic as ourselves. Now we're able to move people to take action, whether it's getting a team on board for an event that we're hosting and making sure that we're running on all cylinders and everybody knows what their job is and what's expected and how they need to show up. Or maybe it's, getting people excited to come and work with us and come be a part of our team. Or maybe it's even just letting that new prospect who you'd love to come in and work with our organization, letting them really truly see how you're going to be able to support them and why you're the perfect person to win that gig and to get the work that you would like to come in and do with them. But really getting them to see you for who you truly are and pulling them in those moments. Anybody have any questions about the vocal empowerment system? I know I went over it. We're only here for a short time together, and I know we went through it pretty quickly. I tried to talk high level, but is there anything specific, or is there any of the areas that really stand out that you feel like you're rocking, or maybe there's an area that you want some improvement on?
No, I had something happen. I left a gig that I was at for like 8 years and was really successful in. And then my next opportunity, the lady I worked for, we just didn't click at all. And our last conversation, she told me I'm a lot. She's like, you're a lot. And I handled this conversation well because she said, I'm a lot. And she said, I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you that. And I said, well, you're the first person to weaponize it. So I realized that she was like kind of weaponizing it on me.
Yeah.
After that, my next big gig, I was a COO of a company. I made myself smaller, I was a lot. So I made myself smaller and a little more, try to be more humble. This guy, when I would introduce myself, would reintroduce me because I did it all wrong. So I was like, for a couple of years, I was yin and yanging back and forth, and I was lucky enough to take a sabbatical. Like I had to like take a year off and figure out what the hell, like who am I? Am I she? Am I her? Who am I? You know? So
Yeah.
you can, as a woman, and I feel bad when there's men on the call, but when you're a woman and you're trying to find your voice, it's not always well received, and then we get stuck in here with this, you know, the inner voice and the sensations and the messaging,
Yeah.
and then my presence, I'm too big, I'm too small. Like I finally had to just like tap out for a year. That's all I
Mhm.
could think to do.
Yeah. First off, I'm sorry that you experienced that, because it can feel like a yo-yo. I'm too much, I'm not enough. Like you're
Right,
getting
right.
different, like you're getting mixed messages from different
Yeah,
places.
yeah.
And then that's when that inner voice really comes in, right? The
Yep,
self-doubt, the imposter syndrome. Who am I to be hosting these events? Am I good
yep,
enough? Do I need something different? Do I show up as myself? Do I play really small and then have people like speaking up over me? Like it's a fine balance act.
yeah.
And it's not always easy. I wish I could say like here's a magic sentence to say and like this would solve it. Like it's a matter of like sticking to these vocal empowerment pieces and listening to your voice and giving yourself, you know, the positive reinforcement that you need. Owning your sensations, knowing
Yeah.
what you're communicating is making sense, but then really just unapologetically showing up as yourself and knowing that some people it other people, I think like other people's opinions don't matter to me. Like
Mhm.
I've told myself that sentence as like a reframe almost to kind of what you're talking about many times, because I can't get stuck up in the story of somebody else's feelings on what they think when I know I'm showing up as the way that I need to. And not to say that like we don't all have moments of growth, right? Where we get feedback, and some feedback can be really
Yeah.
constructive and it can be helpful and it can help mold us into who we are. But also like the example, I think you used the most perfect word, like she was weaponizing
Mhm.
probably your strength. And she
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
how to handle you and she didn't know how to take it. So she weaponized it and she used it against you instead of using it to lift you up. And that's one of the biggest things that, especially women, like we tear each other down.
Mhm.
How do we find ways to lift each other up and use those strengths to play in the sandbox with, versus letting them become, you know, something that we throw away or we have to go on sabbatical and we feel like we can't show up in those moments.
Mhm.
Well, you call your sister and she says, yeah, you're a lot. You're a lot of good. You're a lot of great. You're a lot of
Yeah, that's right.
badass. You're a lot of like, I just want to
Yeah.
get a lot of all of this. And
Yeah.
that girl's a lot of bitch. So carry
Yeah.
on. Like,
Yeah.
you,
I mean,
you get somebody in your ring with you.
Yeah, yeah, that's like you call your family, they always prop you back up. But I can full on see um the pyramid, like where I got tripped up now, you know. I would go right to messaging. Like I probably didn't message well with the girl who I was too much for. I should have been myself, but found a way to you know, I'm on her team. I'm not against her, I'm on her team. Like,
yeah.
yeah, so I can see where my messaging was off. And then from there, the wheels just kind of fall off, you know, like there's only so much you can do. For both roles, by the way, like for both roles, I couldn't,
Yeah.
yeah.
You made me think of one of my clients. Just she just started speaking on some stages, and some pretty big stages compared to what she had spoken on in the past. And she came back from it and she told me, she's like, I wish I could go back and tell my second grade teacher that she talks a lot, is getting paid to talk a lot now.
I
Like,
did that. I did that.
did you?
I was invited to speak at a teachers conference, and I got to read my third grade report card to all of the ladies in the audience. And
I love it.
yeah, I got to do that. Like I do talk a lot. I know I'm a
Yeah,
lot.
but look at the gift that it's giving
Yeah.
you now. Like we were trained, all of us, you know, not to stay small, not speak up, not speak in class. Like you're speaking too much, you're taking you're too much. Like that too muchness is just means that I'm a badass boss and I've got this, right? Like the messages that we're giving our younger girl generation now look so much different, I think, than the message
Yeah.
that we were given in those moments. And so we had to do a lot of the inner voice work to overcome that. Where
Yeah.
like my 13-year-old daughter, like when she gets those things, like I try to like show her like how it's going to help her be the best leader she's going to be able to be today, because you know, she's taking a stand, she's speaking up for people that maybe are not in a position where they can speak up for themselves. She's raising her hand, she's being willing to go out there and do different things, stuff that honestly felt like there was no way in heck I was going to be able to do that when I was younger. Like I was trained like not to do it. Where her, I'm like lifting it. And so we're reprogramming our whole generations into a new way of thinking and a new way of showing up in those moments.
I think too with the inner voice thing is even if there can't be any outward change in the situation, even in situations like what Barb was describing, I've felt like my inner voice has been more um, impacted in that I realize that I have choice for myself, even if I can't control, well, I can't control the people around me, but I can control the decisions I make for myself. So even in a situation in which the partners or the client or whoever is being very disrespectful or the situation is not good at all, I can tell myself that I have the choice to not put myself in that situation again. I can walk away from it.
Yeah.
I've been berated a few times on site by people that I've now made the choice to never work with again. And I feel better for it.
Yeah.
These were not annual clients. They were not paying me a lot. They were paying me late. So I felt no ill will towards
Yeah.
making the choice for myself to not put myself in that situation anymore. And I think that was part of how I moved forward in my communications with people in the future to ensure that I'm not in that position again. I don't Nancy knows this because yesterday I was asking a ton of questions at our new member meeting. I will ask a million questions when I meet someone before I engage in any sort of legal contract binding with them to make sure that I will be comfortable in that situation. Or if so that I can feel comfortable moving forward with them in a situation, even to the next step. So I think that inner voice is really important throughout many different aspects of what we do and just in general. But yeah, as a kid, I was told not to speak up. Don't cause any waves. I'm the child of immigrants. Don't stand out too much. This, that, and the other. And maybe I don't do that all the time, but I do have the choice to make for myself and my inner voice to not put myself in that situation anymore.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And it, like you said, it's like, it's reframing and changing our thought patterns and how we think about it. And I think part of it too, like when we think about using our voice and speaking up, when I work with my clients, especially when go into a lot of organizations and do team trainings within like a team that's maybe having team conflict, oftentimes I tell them we have to start with what I call simple, easy, low stakes conversations so that we can buff it up and start having those bigger, difficult conversations. And those difficult conversations take a little bit of time. It takes practice. It's kind of like working out, right? If you want to go get a six pack, as much as I would love to tell you, go do 2 crunches and you'll have your six pack, like that's not realistic, right? Like you're constantly having to work that muscle to keep the six pack in place. And it's the same thing when we think about our communication. How do we start in easy ways and use that as building blocks so that when we do have those bigger conversations, we've been practicing in so many little smaller conversation ways, we're able to have that bigger conversation. And I'd love to actually do one quick activity before we start to wrap up today. I want to play a game called Never Have I Ever. And this is what I would call one of the easy, low stakes ways for us to start using our voice and asking for what we want and proclaiming it and letting other people know what it is as well. And so you can do this for your business. And if I was doing this for my business growth, I might say, never have I ever written a best-selling never have I ever become a best-selling author yet. I'm going to add the word yet to the end of it. And if I was thinking of like this personal growth, I might say, or personal things I'd like to have happen. Never have I ever ridden in a hot air balloon over Temecula, California yet. So I'd love if everybody would just take a chance and practice using their voice now and just come off mute when you're ready. And I want you to notice something. Notice what you're saying in your head. Like Darlene wants me to say, I want to be a best-selling author, or I want to do these things. Notice the sensations when you do go to speak. And remember, we're just being very clear with our message. Never have I ever blank yet. So you just use that framework and then just be present in the moment. Like use the vocal empowerment system and the tools that we just talked about as you step in and just ask and tell the world and proclaim using your voice in a fun, easy way. So So never have I ever blank yet.
Never have I ever met an elephant yet.
Yes.
That's on
I
my
love it.
to-do list.
Thanks, Barry. That's a fun one.
Never have I ever been to Ireland yet.
Yes. Let's go.
Never have I ever headlined a festival yet.
Mm.
What'd you say? Line to festival?
Headlined, because I have a band. Yeah.
Headlined.
So I've played festivals, but I haven't headlined a festival.
Love that one.
Go Carmen.
Never have I ever hired my first employee yet.
I love that one for you, Daniel. Thank you.
Never have I ever landed a job in Disney production yet.
Mm.
That's the dream.
Here we come, Disney.
Never have I ever signed a contract with Jack Morton yet.
Mm. I love the specificity. I can't say that word. The specificness.
Never have I ever paid for a trip for my mother and I yet.
Mm. I think everyone went, right? Did everybody go?
For Gabriella. I don't know.
I
I caught
haven't
you,
gone yet.
Missy.
Yeah, I know.
caught
I
you.
was thinking, I know I'm gonna go big. Never have I ever produced my children's educational books and programming project yet.
Yes.
I said it out loud.
Yeah,
I
you
love
did.
it.
I heard it too.
So I would love for you to take a second and think, like, how did you feel proclaiming something to this group and saying it out loud?
It was
Maybe hear
fun.
from
Empowered.
empowered.
I would
Mhm,
echo
yep.
Howard because I have applied to roles there and I know people and it just hasn't happened. But I keep it focused forward that it will.
Mm. Love that. And what about those of us that were listening when somebody else spoke? What came up for you hearing somebody else proclaim something so big?
It made me happy. I wanted to cheer them on.
Me
Yeah,
too.
me
Go
too.
get him, Carmen.
Mhm.
You too, Gabrielle. Like, yeah, that was fun to hear.
Yeah, I love the
Mhm.
variety of things.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that my life is so simple right now that my never have I ever, being simple felt so good.
Mm. I love these shares. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like the simplicity of just hearing what we're looking for, but then also hearing other people's message and hearing them proclaim something so bold and brave. And most of these things that were shared, I think many of you said like this is the first time saying it out loud or hearing it. And something will shift in the universe as we start to proclaim more of the things that we actually want and let other people know and communicate that clearly to the people that we're connecting with.
That's what I tell all of the new freelancers that come to Tempo. They're like the students getting right out of college, like, what do I do? What are my next steps? I'm like, keep doing this. Keep finding
Yeah.
anybody you can and tell them what you want to do. Just keep telling people what you want to do. And then someone's going to grab you and you'll do it. I love that. And I
Yeah.
think the one thing that I've learned about communication that is the end all be all too is listen more.
Yes.
Listen. Just listen to people communicate right now and sit on the bench with them. Good,
Mhm.
bad, ugly. Listen. I was
Yes.
teaching my son that the other day.
I think I said it when I was speaking earlier, but so often when we don't listen as a society, usually thinking of what we want to say back to somebody halfway, like, and we're trying to keep that thought together before they're even done sharing what they were thinking. And so we don't actually listen and hear the other person out for what they're saying. If it's such a gift for yourself and for them, if you really just let yourself hear and allow yourself to pause and not feel like you have to respond immediately as somebody finishes their sentence, but giving yourself a second to process and think about what it is you want to say and then respond to the moment, but actually hear the other person.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that one. Thanks, Nancy. Well, I put up on the screen, I have a wonderful free gift for you guys. It's called 10 Do's and Don'ts for Daring Conversations. If you're looking for some things to start doing to help grow your business and help your communication. And also if you're looking for some things that maybe stop doing that are maybe making the conversation a little bit uncomfortable or making it hard, I've got some fun little tips that'll help you kind of just fine tune and tweak your communication, and you can have some quick wins easily. And as I shared, most of my work I do is based on activities like the one we just did. I start with easy, low stakes conversations like the one that we did, and we build from there. And so if you and your team, or if you know of any organizations who are looking for some support to really buff up their communication and connect with the people that they're talking to, whether it's in presentations, on stages, or if it's just in everyday conversations that are happening, I'd love to connect with you. I always offer a free 30-minute call, not as a sales call, an actual 30-minute call where we get a chance to like pick one item that you're struggling with your communication, and we fine tune it and hone it in. And so if you'd like to reach out to me, you can email or text me, and I'd love to give you a 30-minute conversation and just really identify like what's coming up for you and how can we make a couple of small tweaks so we can move forward and really elaborate on our conversation and have more success, close more gigs, have more fun, and just really show up as our true authentic self and not feel like we have to walk on eggshells or if we're going to say it wrong, but really know we're going to say it right in those moments. Does anybody have, I know we're probably at the top of the hour almost, but Nancy, I'll throw it back to you.
Okay, I couldn't get the bit.ly to open. Did anybody else have a problem? Did you guys get it open?
Yeah, I got it.
You got it. Okay, I'll get it from Barb.
I'll drop it in the chat.
Okay, do you want us to share that with the rest of our team, or is that for only those who attended this meeting?
No, that could be for anybody. I offer
Okay.
that. So
I'd
yeah,
say that's really cool. We'll share that with the rest of the team on Slack, and this has been recorded, so it will get shared again in the next couple days. This whole session. This was really, really neat. Thank you so much for taking your time to do this for us today. It was awesome. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me in. I'm grabbing the link still, so if somebody needs it still, don't hang up. I'm working on it.
Cool.
But yeah, I love being here, and the work that you guys are doing is also so great. I love the events I've been to some really boring events, and I love that there's people like you guys out there who are making them fun and bringing it together and really making it a fun, powerful way for people to connect.
We're trying. That's what we try. If our clients give us the money, let us do it.
Right.
All right. Well, I'll wait for the chat, and if you guys want to wait for her to drop it in chat. Oh, there it is. Cool. And
got the link in there, and then I put my website, my phone number, and then I'll put my email as well. So if anybody has any questions and didn't grab it off the screen, feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn is probably my favorite platform to connect. If you are over there, come say hi. Let me know what one of your takeaways was from today. And if you have any questions, I'm always here to connect and support you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Darlene.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nancy.
And next month it's on the 11th again. It's Tuesday, and we're having ChatGPT 101. How to use it, why to use it, what you can do with it, how it works with projects and events. And now the family members coming in. Al's going to come in, my husband, and he is the guru of ChatGPT and AI and how he uses it and how we can all use it in events and projects and stuff. So we're going to put a post on Slack. We're going to ask you how you want to use it, what you want to know, so that we can set him up for success. So keep an eye on Slack for that little survey.
I love ChatGPT.
It's huge. My